interesting and educational, and I hope you go home with an interest in improving your health, even if it's very small steps or if it's very large steps. Every bit makes a difference. My name is Casey Cannon, and I'm really happy to bring this event to you guys. I want to give you a little bit of background about my story and how I got here. Started about 5.5 years ago, I would say, my sort of journey into health. And I was at the Cordon Bleu in culinary school, learning how to be a chef and making a lot of food with cream and butter and animal products and animal proteins. And I was also a pretty avid cyclist. I was riding between 150 and 200 miles a week. I was interested to find out how I could better improve my cycling through diet. So I took an interest in this, and fortunately I had some friends that became pretty good mentors in this capacity. I was lucky enough in 2008 to get invited with a group of athletes to Moab, Utah, to watch them and help them race the 24 Hours of Moab. If anyone knows anything about this race, it's one of the hardest mountain biking races in the United States. The course is 15 miles, 8 miles are climbing. There's 1,400 feet of elevation gain per lap, and there's sections where you're descending at over 40 miles an hour. I had a lot of road miles at this point, but I didn't have any mountain, and I thought, what the heck, I'll get a mountain bike. The way my friends were going is they were gonna ride every day on the way out there. So they were gonna ride 4 to 6 hours in all these national parks, and I thought, well, I'll ride with them. So on the way, I had a heck of an introduction to mountain biking. Probably crashed over the handlebars about 20 times and kept up with everybody, although I was like the caboose on the trail. And anyway, we get to Moab. I was pretty happy that I didn't have to ride anymore, that I could sit back and take care of my friends who were there. And a couple of them were internationally recognized motorcycle road racers. And I had been involved in motorcycles for years, and to me I was getting to watch some of the people that I'd idolized for decades and watched on TV race. I got to help them race at Moab. So we get to Moab, and we're signing up for, the guys are signing up for their race. They were going to do a 5-person all-man team, a relay, and Eric Bostrom, one of the riders, comes over and says, so Case, Ben decided to do the 24-hour solo. It's a pretty big deal. This one guy's going to ride for 24 hours on a mountain bike over that course, a one-man team. And I thought, wow, that's pretty impressive. I mean, he hadn't even trained for it. He'd gone in thinking he was going to ride 4 or 5 hours. Then he kind of dropped a bombshell, and he said, so the rest of us have decided that we're going to ride 5-person co-ed team, and you're our girl. And I thought, are you kidding me? I've had a mountain bike for 3 weeks. I've never ridden at night. I'd never ridden the course. I mean, you could have died on this course. This course was pretty terrible. And on top of all this, Moab had just about the worst riding conditions I think they'd ever seen. That night it was 5 degrees below zero. There were 30-mile-an-hour winds, so it was not easy. And in Bostrom fashion, these guys, they always do things with full spirit. They had us dress up like Reno 911 police officers. So here I am at Moab wearing a cop uniform with tube socks up to my knees. We had fake guns, fake badges, cop bicycle helmets. And there we are racing Moab with 365 teams did this event at the same time. So how Moab turned out was pretty incredible. Ben came third in his solo class. He rode 265 miles that day in 24 hours. He rode 24,000 feet of climbing on his mountain bike. And he rode solid 24 hours straight with pit stops, change of lights, things like that. I was pretty impressed. It was a really true feat, considering especially that he hadn't trained for the event to do it solo. And pretty remarkably, our team came in first out of our class of 35 teams. And even more remarkably, we came 10th overall out of 365 teams. And we beat a whole lot of the professional mountain biking teams, including, which I think is pretty cool, the U.S. Navy SEAL team. Well, the point of my story, and I think what was most remarkable and life-changing for me about this, wasn't what happened at Moab. It was that the week leading up to Moab, and talking to the Mostroms and seeing how incredibly fit and athletic and healthy and the stamina that they had, the energy that they had, they were plant-based eaters. They didn't eat any meat, they didn't eat any dairy, no fish, no eggs. And for me, it really confronted me with a whole lot of perceptions about what we're supposed to eat, especially as an athlete. You're told you've got to get your proteins, you've got to eat your animal products. And here was somebody that just obliterated all of these concepts for me and really demonstrated that you could really thrive on a plant-based diet and you could do some pretty remarkable things. Ben is the nicest guy, and I've talked to him a number of times over the years. And after Moab, I was talking to him about diet. I was pretty happy I was about to finish at Le Cordon Bleu because I thought these guys are really onto something, and I don't think I want to be cooking this kind of food anymore. And Ben was kind enough to say, hey, you know, Casey, you want to know why we eat the way we eat? He said, you know, read this book. And he handed over the China Study by Dr. Campbell, T. Colin Campbell, who's PhD. He still teaches at Cornell University. And basically, I had a pretty big shift in my entire being upon reading that book. So I'll drop my story right now. I'm going to just take a little break, and I'm going to introduce Michael Hogan for our first speaker. Gotta get my notes here. Michael is a pre-med graduate at Syracuse University. He's been a personal trainer for over 12 years. He's worked as a surgical consultant in orthopedic surgery for 5. He specializes in myofascial release therapy, trigger point therapy, neuromuscular sports therapy, and sports medicine. And I find Michael a pretty interesting counterpoint because I feel that health really came from how you feed yourself and through nutrition. And Michael brings a point about being healthful through taking and maintaining your body. So, Michael Hogan.